Hello and welcome to another exciting session. I'm really happy we made it this far, and we'll be picking up from where we left things the last time. And previously, we had looked about creating the database. We created a database. We talked about what it is, a structured way of storing data. And so we did identify using our relational database. We created a database, so the create command, the syntax, which is important, you do not forget this. We also identify tables as a structured way of storing our data. And so we created a table. Remember, you recall the syntax, the create keyword, the table name, the columns, and then the data types. And we said we're going to build on these things. Thereafter we need to insert records into the table, and we use the insert command to insert a single record. I would implore you to insert more records to your table, using that insert command as we demonstrated in our previous session. If you missed it or you're not quite sure, you can go over the lecture again, and where you're still not clear, you feel free to drop your questions. I'll be more than happy to respond to them, or if someone says it and gives you a pointer, we're all learning together, we're forming this great community of learners. So we did look at the insert command, and then after that, we tried to view the records. And to do that, we used the select key command, right? The select command, where the syntax of the select command, we said it was select keyword, and then we used an asterisk. You recall, I'm just going to just point that in. So we said the select command there, we said the asterisk, and the asterisk is symbolic to say all the columns and table, first table, that's the name of our table, and we'll use the semicolon. So if I run this command, I see the records. I inserted two more records, before this recording here to our table. Okay. So now we're able to see, to view our records. We said we're going to build more on this. Now, before we expound on the viewing bit, which is like the select command, I also just want to also quickly touch on two other basic commands, which is we've inserted our records. Now we can view our records. The next thing is, what if you want to update your records? Okay, to update your record, we should be able to make changes to our records, because sometimes maybe we make a mistake. So if you want to make changes to our record, to update or edit the record. Now to perform that action, we use the update command. Okay, we use the update command, and we start by typing keyword update, right? Followed by the name of the table. So in this case here, the name of our table is what? First table, all right? First table. So we type in our table, first table there. Next to it, you're saying, you're reading this as it is here, update this table, right? The name of your table. Then what do you want to change? Okay. So in this case, perhaps let's change the second entry in this list, which is Jane Doe, Boma, and I want to change her title from Miss to Mrs. Okay. So here you're saying update the table name, set as another important word in your keyword. Set, now you have to specify the column, right? Set title as another report of column to be equal to, and then we enclose it in quotes, the value in quotes. Now, this doesn't end here, because if you terminate your query here, it's a valid query, right? But however, it leaves it open for interpretation. So what happens if you let this query run is that it's going to update all the records in that table. And that's not really what you want. Okay? That's not really what you want. You're going to update all the records in that table, but you only want it to update the single record, and that's where this first name is Jane, or where this serial number is 2, or where the other name is Roma. Okay, so these are specific areas where you have to specify, because except you just want to say, hey, um, make an update to everyone, change everyone's title, then it's fine to just leave it at this point. But as a rule of thumb, from practice, it's best you specify to say, hey, don't just update this, but to say, set the title to Mrs. Where, so you could, so we have options. We'll say where the SNO is two, where the first name is Jane, or we'll say where the other name is Joma. Now, this would just put a quick preview of what's to come about when we created our table. We're going to go over that again in the future, right? In terms of the data type. So it's very important, like when you're creating your table, the data types, using things such as primary key or unique fields. So if you have a column which cannot have a duplicate record. That's an advantage. So in this case here, you just easily can say, hey, there's no other person that's going to PH in, or there's no other record in this table that's going to have the SNO of two. In this case, it's easy for us can just say where the SNO is equal to 2. Now, if you recall when we're inserting the records, I'm typing in the 2 and I'm not enclosing it in any code because it's an integer, a number. So there's no need to enclose it in quotes. Doing enclosing it in a code is like telling the machine that this is a text. Okay. Now it will read it, but especially when you want to perform arithmetic functions, it's good that you specify that the values in your column should be treated as an integer or a variant of an integer. So more on this when we get into data types as regards our table structure. So now if I should hit this, run this command, I should run this command, I said update first table set title to be equals to Mrs. where SNO is equal to 2. Now I get an error message here saying you're using safe update mode and try to update the table without a where clause. Right? That's what it says without a where clause. You can see this that use a key foreign to disable save must toggle the person. So this is just about this workbench that I'm using. So I need to obviously update the setting. All right. So disable the safe mode in preference, SQL editor. Let's just copy out that message. That message there. Let's just copy out that message. Um, I want to see it very well. Okay. We are using a safe update mode without a where clause. I use a different using toggle the option in preference. It's it's not this is actually using a where clause. But it's still saying that. So let's just go to preference. Alright, so let's just quickly check our preference. Something just here. Still, all right, so that was a little hiccup, and I fixed that by simply modifying or altering the table. I needed to set the primary key. Um, Now that's just a safety caution that the workbench, provides. Hence the command where it said you're using this in safe update mode and try to. So two options was either to disable the safe mode or to do what I did. And in this instance, what I simply did was to alter the table and define a primary key. Now, not to bother, we're going to get into what a primary key is much later in the course, like I said. So continuing from where I stopped, so we have our update command, our query as written here, the update keyword followed by the name of the table, and then the instruction. You're saying set this column to be equal to this value here, and so say I want to change it to Mrs. where SNO is equal to 2. So we're trying to limit it to say, hey, let it just be this record. So it sees and it performs the action to just that record. And if we run this command, we're saying that the query has been executed successfully. And now if I should display it again, here we can see that where the SNO is equal to 2, and that's for Jane Doe Boma, right? We now see that we have Mrs. as the title. Okay, so that's about it in terms of editing your records, or popularly known as running an update command on your database. You identify the table you want to edit the record, and then you impute your command. The update keyword comes in first, the name of the table, the instruction has to be clear. So you're saying set this value to be equal to this, and then you go to restrict it to a particular row or rows that meet the criteria that you have identified, for your update action. Okay. So next, I'm also using my database here, and next, I want to cover is a basic delete action. So it does happen, you have records and these records are no longer needed and you want them taken off the table, off the database. What do? We use a delete command, okay? We use a delete command. Now there are variants of delete action, but the most basic is the delete command, and it's important even as you go up the ranks, in terms of expanding your knowledge base, you would find out that this delete command is still very useful. So the delete command runs similar to the select command in the sense that you use the keyword delete, okay? Now that's a typo there. You say delete. Now you say delete from. Why I'm saying delete from, don't use the asterisk. If you use the asterisk, like I said, means select all columns. In the case of the delete command, if you use the asterisk, you're deleting all the records in the table. So it's best not to use the asterisk. You say delete from, you put in your table. In our instance here is first table, right? First table, and you specify the particular record. So our columns are merely like titles, like holders. The rows are the actual records. So when you're deleting, you have to specify, like, I want to delete this record. So in this case here, we'll delete the value in serial number 2, SNO2, which is Jane. So I have to specify now saying delete where, okay, where SNO, SNO, just backspace a bit for that, is equal to 2. We'll put our semicolon, and we run that action. Our record has been deleted, saying it's here. Now we're going to perform our select action again. You see that we have just two records, John and Janet, in the table. Okay, so this is basic syntax to perform a delete action. If you make a mistake, just like the update command, and say we do not use the where helps you um, to streamline your query results to what you want. So watch what happens. I've just taken off the where clause, in that update command, and I run it. You know, I say and I run it, and because I'm even in safe mode, it doesn't allow me, because of the workbench. Now this doesn't apply if I disable that. The command will run successfully. Okay, the command will run successfully. It's important to know because in practice, um, your technical team would likely have this disabled so you can perform operations easily, except there are some security concerns where they will put such limitations. It is always good to be on the safe side, to know that you're executing the right command. So to execute the right command, you must issue the right command to write the correct query. Okay. Now, watch what happens when I use the asterisk in my delete command here. And even if when I say SNO should be equal to 2 and I run it, I'm saying that, oh, you have an error in my syntax, and that's fine. And that's fine because of the safety law. But rule of thumb, when you're performing your update action, always use the where clause to streamline where you want that update action to be applied. When you're performing a delete action, it's always best to use the where clause to specify particular rows that you want deleted. Now, instances where you not specify, the where clause in an update or a delete action is when you want this action to apply to all the rows. Okay, so perhaps you just want to change, you just want to set your in you're working with a school and they say the school is an all male school or it's an all female school and the gender of the bio table, it's blank. Someone inserted the records and did not indicate the gender, but you in this case here, since you know that they're all males or all females, you can just say, hey, update set gender to be equals to male or female. In such an instance, you do not need to indicate with the where clause, right? You can just simply let it run, and that action applies to everyone. Okay. And what about when you want to just expunge records, just want to delete all the records in a table? Then you can easily use a delete command with the asterisk, and there's no need for the where clause. What happens is that all the records in the table will be deleted. If you're using the workbench, I would advise you try to just take off, toggle off, go through the preferences and disable safe mode. I will disable mine now so you can see, as we progress, what happens when you make the wrong decision. The wrong decision comes with consequences. It doesn't necessarily mean that your query is incorrect. Your query could be correct, the syntax could be correct, but that's what you actually intend, and when you take such actions that it goes beyond what you intended it for, you have, a problem on your hands, So part of this is to guide you to see the basics, so you do not step out of line. So we've looked at how to edit the records, how to also delete records from your table. Okay. So now we'll just take one extra step with our select command. So I'm just going to wipe this all off here, and let's spend more time with our select command. The select query as we have come to know it now. Okay. Still So now we've been all along we've been writing our queries like this, select from table, and we said the syntax, it's basically into four parts, four major parts, So we have our select first, just taking this here. We have the asterisk, we have the word from, and then we have the name of the table. Okay, we have the name of the table, and in this case it's the first table, and as a rule of thumb, we use our semicolon to terminate every action, every query that we have running in our database. Now, the select seems pretty straightforward. You're given an instruction, say, hey, I want to select particular records, right? That's what it is. I want to select particular records. The next thing you need to inform the database, the machine, is the columns. Okay. Do you want all the columns returned? Like we have all our columns here returned. Or do you want specific columns? Because sometimes in your table, you do not want all the columns returned. Sometimes you may just want specific columns. Sometimes you may want the columns to be arranged in a format that is different from what is currently here. So as a default view, if you're not certain, you use the asterisk to say asterisk symbolizing all columns. If you know the columns you want, you can just specify to say, hey, I want the serial number. I want the first name, right? I want the first name. I want the last name as well. I want the last name. Next up, you have to specify from. You have to use that word from. So you're saying select these three values here. The next question is like from where, so you have to use from and then you have to specify where. So from this table, okay, from this table. So you put in your table name, and with all this selected here, you execute your command. So you see that what is returned now is just three columns, okay, the serial number, the SNO, the first name, the last name. The title is not returned because I did not request for that. Now, if I were to come over here to say, hey, I want the title here, and I want the title before the first name and the last name. I now see that I have my title, Mr. John Doe, is Janet Doe. And we know that first name, the other name sometimes in some convention it comes in as a middle name. So I could say, oh, the arrangement of this name. So I want the other names, right, to come in here. Now observe that for each column that I'm typing in, I'm putting a comma to separate it. Okay. So I get to the last one, where I can hit like a space or come to another line, and then I run the command. So now I'm saying Mr. John Belamado, Miss Janet Lolo Do. Okay. Now this is we now, instead of using the asterisk to just return everything, now let's compare these records here. When you use the asterisk and it just returns everything as compared to when we specify the arrangement. So with the asterisk, it's coming out SNO, first name, last name, other name, title is last, and it's preceded by the other names or middle name. But here, what I do is I have the SNO, the title first, the first name, the other names, the last name. Now it's because of our choice, my preference to say, hey, I want the title before. I want to see the title before going into any other detail. Now from our update and our delete action, like we said, it's important to use the where clause. The where clause is also very important in your select command. When you have multiple records in your table and you want to select them, it's important to say like, hey, I don't want all the records returned. I just want a particular set of records returned. And for that, just as we saw in our updates and delete queries, it's after the table name, you type in the word where. Okay, so you're specifying, you're trying to streamline it, and you have to now use a column, and a value in the column. So you say, hey, where, so I'm just going to use something that's going to return both data. Last name, all right? So that's a column. Last name is equal to, I'm closing it in quotes, do, and I close the quotes. And where we have last name equal to do, you see the records returned. If I should say where first name, right? First name is equal to, instead of do, I'm going to say John. And we know that we have just one John there. You see that only one record is returned, and that's Mr. John Delama Do. Okay? So we're going to take a breather here for you to just process what you heard, what you've seen so far. And when you're done with that, I would implore you to implore more records, insert more records rather, insert more records into your table. I'm going to insert more records so we can continue with building on the select action. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to see you in the next section. Cheers.